Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis 108. So just giving you an insight of what we've got up ahead for next week, well this week, and we're just going to compare our analysis from last week as well. So we are going to start off with gold. So what we're looking at for pretty much this pair was just a downside move to tap potentially into 1760. That's where we're ultimately heading into. So we can see prices dropping lower. So if we take a look at last week, roughly, we can see price action is just pretty much pushing up very slowly, and it's not really been doing too much. But essentially, we can start to see that price is probably looking like it's willing to drop lower, seeing as this momentum is dropping here. So I won't be surprised if price does end up pushing lower into this 1760s level. So I am going to go ahead and get rid of this analysis side now, this scenario, sorry. So we've got left down with just these two now. So I'm expecting 1760 to have some sort of rally to the upside. So I am going to now change this to just the lower level of 1720. So essentially, if price goes lower than this zone, we should be expecting more bearish pressure to kick in, and that's where we'll have to wait for a sell retest sort of trade. But as long as we stay above 1720, I'm more kind of confident that we could probably expect a reversal back into the highs of 1880. 1880, even higher. Probably I would be looking at 1920, probably rallying a lot higher than that. But again, that's only if we get that rebound to really rally towards the upside. But yeah, pretty excited for gold to see where it can turn into, and we'll see where the overall direction ultimately plays out to. So let's move on to now Euro USD. So this one has been an absolute rocket. So we can see price had dropped to the downside. Essentially, my plan of action was just to wait for a pullback, but we never really got one. So unfortunately, we just could not miss. We just couldn't get in on this. So this part of the trading, completely missed out on 300 pips. So it was a good trade though, if you obviously did get involved with that. So what I'm essentially got for this pair for this week. So now that we've potentially fulfilled the upside rally, I am looking out for any sell-off momentum to kick into play. So whether price starts to break up high and then breaks lower, or that this is the week where we just get a break lower, I'm looking for price to potentially make a pullback to some degree. If I was to suggest a level, I would be looking at now 1.115 or even 1.11, because now I think we're trapped in like a mid-range. But I am just going to wait for a pullback, because I think that overall is probably a better trade to participate in. So yeah, essentially we could, depending on how far this drops, that's where we're going to have to kind of keep attention on, mainly on that, mainly on the pullback, because this could always drop into 1.11, as the overall, I think the overall direction for this pair is the downside, even though we've had this massive push to the upside. Taking a look at the RSI, there's overbought, sorry, conditions here. There's not really been that much of a divergence, so it does raise questions for myself, like is this willingly going to push higher with that continued momentum, or is it just a fake out push towards the upside? So just keeping that in the back of my mind. I'm not really interested in taking any buys, but if we do again just have a setup in mind, it would have to be something like this. So I guess maybe in the week it could open up a possibility of a buying situation, but I'm not entirely too sure for now, as it's just the end of the start of the week. We've not really. We need a bit more data to understand where price is going. But as price action is holding right now, it's most likely going to have a pullback to some extent, and then we can gain a better of a picture next week or so, or once there's more bars that's been presented onto the chart. So that's essentially what I'm looking at. So looking at Nzd USD. So for this, I'm actually looking for more of a downside continuation. Liking how prices dropped off towards the end of the week, so the NFP kicking it off. So I'm not entirely too sure what that annotation was. Let me have a look. So yeah, I think I was waiting for more of a probably a push lower, and then the anticipation push higher. I didn't really get involved in that one, if I'm being honest. More or less, I think, you know, that push towards the upside completely missed us that opportunity to get involved on the retest. So I'm not entirely convinced in taking any buys for now, but I'm looking at more taking sells just into this low, into 0.65, so around this level. See if it can take and tap that out. So we could probably wait and anticipate for a pullback to some degree. But yeah, if we do get, so the other scenario that we had is that if price is willingly going to push higher than this zone here, so it's pretty much basically this is just a dynamic support and resistance. So I'm aligning it up with 0.67. So if we get a break above here, I think there could be a possible buy trade scenario set up. So I'm just going to be aware of that trade if we do break higher. So something that I'm looking at as well. So looking at AUD, USD. So yeah, I was looking at last week, maybe some kind of pushing or price momentum to push just a little lower and then have that rally to the upside, but didn't really get involved with that one. I think it's just because of the Asian session. But yeah, ultimately for this pair, you know, it pretty much did that scenario that we just did early in the week, so I wasn't expecting that to happen so fast. But yeah, for this pair, I'm actually looking for price to drop lower into 0.695 potentially. That's one scenario I'm looking into. The other scenario is that if we break above 71.5, this could be a possible bullish trade setup that we can anticipate. So again, that dynamic support and resistance. Let me just move that there. So yeah, ultimately we could be just waiting for that kind of push. So I don't really want to talk too much on that, but basically that's what I'm looking at. Looking at UJ now, let's take a look. So if we see how prices performed from last week, pretty much we're waiting for that pullback and just that gradual push up higher. So yeah, there was a nice opportunity to get involved there. So hopefully you know guys managed to get something in from that from last week. But yeah, we can see price dropped lower and then it pretty much picked up again. So what I'm looking at now is two scenarios. So this is one being if price manages to pull back to some degree within this range, basically at 114, you know, to this high here, we could expect, you know, price to break a lot higher. You know, we're expecting to go into at least 116.5, so just roughly here, or basically 117. You know, that's where we're trying to go. So whether that price is able to have one more pullback and one more chance for us, then hopefully we can grab that opportunity. But if not, you know, the price may miss out on this one. So we guys might miss out on this one. So if you really want to push yourself and get into some kind of retest along the way up to the upside, then that could be one sort of scenario that you could look at. The other point that I'm looking at as well is at 113. So 113. Basically, if we break that low, there could be a retest scenario where we drop in lower. So essentially, like so. So let's move this across. So yeah, if we drop lower, we should be able to potentially anticipate some sales, but we're quite far off from this. So let's just see what we can bring from that. So CAD JPY. Let's take a look into this one. So essentially, I was waiting for price to, you know, do some moves to the upside, but it's been quite choppy. It's been really sideways moving. I guess, you know, the NFP didn't really help CAD JPY break out to some potential area, but I think I'm just going to move price action across really in that scenario across. But what I'm possibly looking into is for price to make its way to the upside and then drop lower. let me just get rid of that because that doesn't really explain that very well. But it's basically price actions here. So we're looking for price to make one more push up, and then hopefully we can just break the low. So I'm only looking at 89.5 for now. I'm not entirely sure where price could ultimately go to, but I am looking at 87 in the meantime. So you could look at that level just for now, and then next week we can look into where price progresses into. So yeah, the other point of that I'm looking at is 92. So if we break above here, there is a scenario that we can wait for that retest to some degree, and hopefully we can get involved and expect price to push higher. But I'm not really thinking of that so far because prices, this momentum pushing lower is a bit more interesting. And I think we have that possibility of price pushing into 87. So we'll see where we can go through with that one. Let's take a look at EJ. So EJ has been an absolute rocket. So yeah, ultimately, there was this buying opportunity here. I didn't think that price would actually push this high. So absolute rocket. So the bias to the downside was actually wrong, but hopefully, there was the intention that you could have possibly bought on the buy side. But again, following the analysis, it didn't really play out too well. So my thoughts onto this moving forward is, as I was expecting at least one drop, I think that we could have some sort of drop off, or at least a pullback to some degree before we again rally higher maybe. So that's one scenario I'm looking at. Or the other scenario is we'll just get one more push up and then the complete sell-off again, because the previous analysis was expecting price to probably drop into 127.5, so I'm still expecting price to do that. And again, you could be looking at a sell here and a buy here, or maybe ultimately looking at a sell and it taking its way all the way into 127. But yeah, this one has been quite surprising this week. Didn't really expect 131 to actually break. But obviously scenarios can change, and that's why we have that that upwards arrow up there. So so modifying that, we can still see there's a lot of strength in here, but like I always say, if there's always a lot of strength, there is a pullback that's due. So we can participate in a counter trend move, and if it does mean that it's going to be a deep one, there's going to be some pips on the line that we can recover. So maybe 200, maybe, not too sure with that one actually. Maybe at least a 50% at 130. So that could be a potential target. So I might just draw that in for you guys. And it kind of lines up well with some support and resistance levels. So like so. It's a bit messy, but but yeah, that's how I would probably draw it. But I'm gonna just probably get rid of that because it looks a bit messy. But you can put that in on your own drawings. But yeah, I'm looking into this range right now. So two scenarios expected for this one. So we'll see what we can come for that one. So let's take a look at AJ. Let's take a look. So for this, I'm actually expecting price to drop off, or potentially sell to the downside. And I am looking for price to, potentially make its way into, is it 80? Okay, so basically under this low here, so 80.5. So we can see this channel that we've got ranged, or we've got outlined here. So what I'm expecting is probably price to drop just a little lower. We can have a look on this channel, and it'll be expand it just a little like this, so and then we can probably push just a little lower. Hopefully we stay within this kind of range, or this kind of channel. So let's just go ahead and get rid of these. So yeah, so this is what I'm kind of looking into. I'm not really entirely sure if we can get this far for now, but I think price is respecting our channels right now, so it would be interesting to see if we can, you know, possibly take a sell, because there is the likelihood that we could break 79, and that could be just ultimate a downfall. But you know, we can use this kind of range or this kind of area to expect a possible reversal. So yeah, I'm expecting this kind of thing to play out, so hopefully we can look at something like this. Well, we'll see what happens, but ultimately that's the scenario. So USD Chef, let's take a look into this one. So yeah, so for this, moving on from what's called 1st of Feb, so we expected the sell-off. That came very well. So, you know, I think it was early off in the session, in the Asia session, so pretty much downfall there, complete sell-off. I was expecting at least some sort of recovery or some sort of bounce, so that's where we are right now. So we can go ahead and change this. So hopefully, if we are lucky, so there's two sorts of scenarios now. We've moved on from that that pullback from that huge up move from the previous week. So we could potentially expect one more move to the downside before going up higher, or the second scenario is that this is going to ultimately fulfill a price move towards the upside. So if that does happen, then in the second scenario, I think it's going to be, you might have to just willingly just get involved somehow, or, you know, if you want to wait for the next turning point, I would possibly wait for next week for this pair, unless we break this high early on in the week. Then I can probably give you a better update. But for now, I'm thinking more on this scenario first, dropping potentially lower if it can, obviously, but I'm liking this momentum to the downside. That's what I'm thinking. Price could possibly give us one more opportunity to buy. But yeah, you could obviously look at a sell as well at the same time, just to hedge your bets, just in case that this momentum to the downside does continue. And if it does, we'll, you know, again, if we do break the 91 barrier, this could possibly push even further lower than we would have expected. But, you know, for now, I'm kind of following the buy scenario long term, or not long term, but like mid-term ish, if that makes sense. So yeah, so moving on to USD Cad lastly. So we are looking at basically, so yeah, so we was looking at a pullback to some degree. Yeah, so we can see prices made some sort of recovery, but not too deep, I guess. But it made some sort of, you know, potential move like so. So, you know, hopefully you manage to get something from this. But I'm thinking more now for this week is again another scenario, which is we'll either get a sell-off, a bit more of a deeper sell-off, and then that rally higher, or we will get price to push up higher. And then from here it's going to be interesting, because we're either going to push a lot higher, or we're going to completely reverse over to the downside. So I think that is you know, what I'm looking into for next week for USD Cad. Again, it all kind of comes down to what the price, what the candlesticks are showing us first, really. But yeah, ultimately that's something that I'm kind of focusing on. So that'll be all for this week. I am going to be posting some, obviously, any updates regarding the crypto market. I think it's pretty much playing out to what I've kind of expected so far with my previous videos on the cryptos, so I have no reason to kind of pre-update them. But yeah, so yeah, if you did get any value from this video, feel free to leave a like, make sure you're subscribed, and thank you very much for your listening and for your time. So that'll be all from us. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next week.